What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 280 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I want to talk to you about Sebastian O. This is a 3-issue miniseries from Vertigo from, I want to say, the early 90s, but I may be a little off. It may have been closer to the mid-90s. This is written by Grant Morrison with art by Steve Yao, or Yao. I'm going to be honest, I don't know how to say his last name, but this is the same artist who worked with Grant Morrison and I believe Mark Millar on Skrull Kill Crew, which was a miniseries from the mid-90s at Marvel. And his art style is pretty good. I don't really know how to describe it. I was trying to think of other artists who have a style very similar to this, and I couldn't really think of anybody. But his style is very clean. At times it's a little sketchy, but that's mostly whenever he's trying to convey something really creepy. Some of the bad guys in this are hired assassins, and they are especially creepy, and I think in those instances he's trying really hard to go for something that's very sketchy with a lot of cross-hatching and stuff to make it a little bit creepier, but for the most part his style is very clean. I like it. I have no idea what happened to this artist. I have not seen anything else from him other than Skrull Kill Crew, unless he did like an issue of X-Men or something that I'm completely unfamiliar with. This seems to be one of those artists who just kind of dropped off the face of the earth, and maybe I'm just wildly off the mark. Maybe he did have a really prolific career that I'm just unaware of, but I have never seen his art anywhere except for this and Skrull Kill Crew, and I like his art, which is why I'm kind of curious why I haven't seen more from him. Getting on to the story, I don't like the story very much. I bought this based exclusively on Grant Morrison's name. I am a pretty big Grant Morrison fan. I would say I probably read about half of his body of work in comics, maybe a little bit more. So I'm a pretty big fan of his, and I thought maybe I would like this because the premise basically sounded like gay Victorian James Bond. And I thought, okay, under the hand of Grant Morrison, that should be interesting. And you've got this guy, Sebastian O. He's kind of an adventure hero. He goes on all of these, not really missions. This particular story, he's more on a mission to get revenge. He's not working for the government or any organization like James Bond would work for, but his story here does feel very much like any of the James Bond stories where James becomes a rogue agent, where he's being pursued by agents of law and order, and he is not necessarily trying to clear his name, but just trying to get back at the people who put him in jail and tried to ruin his life. But I thought, okay, this should be interesting. It's set in the late Victorian era, close to the turn of the century, and you've got technology that exists here that didn't exist in the real world. Grant Morrison has this little timeline at the beginning of the book that goes all the way back to the burning of Alexandria, and he is altering the timeline a little bit. He's introducing things in the timeline that didn't happen in the real world. For example, the invention of the computer happens much earlier here than it did in the real world, like 300 or 400 years earlier than it did in the real world. And so by the time you get to the 1890s, this world has stuff that does not exist in the actual 1890s, like a scanner that scans your hand, or the internet, or cell phones, stuff like that. You've got helicopters that exist in this world. So that sounds like something that I would be interested in. If you'll remember in my review of The Adventures of Luther Arkwright by Brian Talbot, that was kind of what drew me into that, was a multiversal secret agent with a Victorian kind of bent to the whole flavor, with lots of technological stuff that didn't exist in the Victorian times. I thought this would be really cool, and unfortunately, it does not work for me. All of the characters in this book are absolute scumbags, including our protagonist, Sebastian O. He is not a likable character, and I talked about this a little bit when I did my Otherworld review a few days ago. Characters don't have to be likable, but there has to be something that draws the audience in. There has to be something that makes us want to keep reading about this character, and unfortunately, this book, I did not want to keep reading. It was a struggle for me to keep going, and this isn't even 100 pages long. This is not a long book, and it was really difficult for me to keep reading this book. That's how bad this was. The only reason that I want to see Sebastian O keep going, and I want to see him succeed, is because all the other characters in this book are so much worse than Sebastian O. You may be asking, okay, what is so bad about Sebastian O? At one point, we see him, he's in his house, and the police are trying to capture him because he escaped from this asylum thing, and the police aren't bad guys in this book. They're just doing their job. The people who are sending him out to capture Sebastian O, they they are the bad guys that Sebastian O should be going after. But he's in his house taking a shower and getting some clean clothes because he feels filthy after he was in the asylum. And then the police chief, he comes into this room, stumbles into the room more likely, and Sebastian O just shoots him point blank. The guy doesn't even have a gun, he's unarmed, and Sebastian O just shoots him. Now, this would have been different if Sebastian O was being pursued by the police and the policeman is about to beat him with a club, or he has a gun and he's about to shoot somebody and Sebastian O stops him from shooting an innocent person or something like that. That would be one thing, but that's not what happened here. Sebastian O shoots a relatively innocent man who was going after him, but he very easily could have left that guy alive because his house was filled with all these weird danger room-esque things that were keeping the police occupied while he was taking a bath and getting dressed. And he very easily could have escaped from his house without shooting this guy who didn't really do anything to deserve being shot. Now, most of the other characters in this book are even worse than Sebastian O. Two of the assassins who come after Sebastian O, they are cannibals. They eat a child who delivered a message to them. So they are much, much worse than Sebastian O. And so we definitely want to see him persevere over these people. But not because of anything that he did, because of all the other characters being so much more awful and terrible than he is. Overall, if you're interested in this, I would not recommend reading this. This is not something that I enjoyed at all. I can scarcely believe that Grant Morrison even had a hand in it because even the really weird stuff here doesn't really feel like the level of weirdness that Grant Morrison usually brings to a story. This really just feels like he was just having an off day or an off few months whenever he wrote this. No, I did not like Sebastian O, unfortunately. I do not recommend it. I hope that you guys did like this video, though. If you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you do like this video, I will be doing quite a few more for the rest of this year. So be sure to check me out tomorrow when I'll be doing another video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.